In my school, there was probably about 60-70% Pakistanis in my school.
Right.
Well, they never talk to me about Islam. All we knew is that we got this extra prophet. We pray this way, they pray this way, and that's about it. Right? And after school, they have to keep going to this class that they're all mourning about. Yeah, they have to go to this class and they got extra lesson, and so they can't come out and play straight after school. You say, can you go out to play? No, they got to go to this class. That's it. So that's all we knew. No nonsense talking. Right. So when I spoke to her, if I tried to give her a little banter, a little patter, no. All right, say Islam, come by. I was like, wow, mashallah, she's good. I like this one. Yeah.
So, Abdul Muhammad,
yes,
welcome.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming here today, CubeCast. Let's get straight into it. Can you just start by telling me a little bit about yourself? Your background, your family.
I'm similar age to yourself, 45 years old. Thank you very much, sir. Born and raised in Sheffield. I'm a Yorkshireman. I'm of African, Caribbean descent. I'm Jamaican. My father, he came when he was 17 years old to the UK. My mother was born in London.
Wow.
And they got together, had me in Sheffield. Since that time, I've grown up in Sheffield most of my life. Did a little stint in Watford. But apart from that being, primarily raised by my mum, and my dad had further families, let's say, and so he wasn't always around all the time. Raised with my mum in Sheffield, over at Netherhead sides, and grew up in a sort of mixed environment, different cultures and things like that were around.
So like in terms of your beliefs then growing up, would you say that your family were like churchgoers? Were you?
Very much so, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So from my mum's side, it was Church of God Seventh Day, and then from my grandfather's side, he was Seventh Day Adventist.
Right.
So I did a bit of both.
Right.
Yeah. So
you used to go to Sunday school and everything like that.
They didn't so much have Sunday school. Yeah.
Oh, Seventh Day Adventist.
Seventh Day Adventist. Yeah. So it's on Saturday. Yeah. So they have it in the morning. So in the morning, they have special class for the youth. And so then they go to that class and then join the rest of the congregation later on. So that's how I grew up. So I grew up in church from, I would say, from a pretty young age. Yeah, I was in church. And then that kind of, I think by teenage years, that kind of fizzled out. I think my mum's journey also changed because you tend to follow your parents.
Yeah.
So that also changed as well. I actually got to the age of, when I was in college. So about 16, 17, I felt like I had a calling, and actually went back to church on my own accord.
Oh, right.
I went back to church for about a year or two. Yeah.
Okay.
So I felt like I needed to get in touch again, because for myself, the faith has always been there. There's always been faith that there's something bigger than ourselves. There's a creator, and he's worthy of praise. How you do that is our job. This is what we need to find out, is how do we do that? How do we live our lives the way that the Creator wants us to live? So I did go back.
So how does Islam fit in this then? So you said you went back to to church.
Yeah.
You're searching for something.
Yeah.
So how did Islam come about?
At that time, it was very different to now. Nobody was talking about it. So even though you got people practicing it, you got the mosques around. In my school, there was probably about 60-70% Pakistanis in my school.
Right.
Well, they never talk to me about Islam. All we knew is that we got this extra prophet. We pray this way, they pray this way, and that's about it. Right? And after school, they have to keep going to this class that they're all mourning about. Yeah, they have to go to this class and they got extra lesson, and so they can't come out and play straight after school. You say, can you come out to play? No, they've got to go to this class. That's it. So that's all we knew. So Islam didn't come into it until later on. I would say the year was around about 1998, and it came through a strange way, just through a relationship. Mm-hmm. So this was a relationship with a girl that came from a Muslim family, and because the relationship got more serious, that made me have a look to see how to make things right, because with that particular background, her family weren't so comfortable or so giving,
right.
And there was a lot of tension. It's not it's not the easiest journey to have with a girl that comes from a Muslim background. So I thought, let me have a look at Islam. Let me see what it's about, because I didn't really know.
Okay.
So I asked a few brothers that I knew that were Muslim at the time, I remember there was Sandy we was at college at Norton College at the time. So I know that there was Sandy at the time, a few other brothers, and so they just started taking me through some of the basics, the pillars, how you make wudu and how you pray and so forth, and then just guided me towards certain books. I think the one that I related to most was Ahmadidat's evaluation, because he came from the perspective of comparison. Right. That for me helped a great deal, because I had the Christian background, I'd been in it, but I also came out of it because something didn't quite sit quite right. So the faith was there, but that particular religion wasn't quite the right one for me. So when the way that Ahmadidat comes at it in that comparative way, I was like, I could see it and I could get to it, and he had that white book with the pink question mark. So I was going through that and saying, is he right? Because I was challenging everything. Right. Because for myself, if I'm going to take a faith, I know what it's not going to have. It's not going to be written by man. Okay? So in my perspective, my barometer is that any faith that I'm practicing, that's being created by my creator, who created all the heavens and the earth and the universe and the atoms and all these different things and us, surely he can write a book without us having to help him.
Were you surprised with the things that you found? Right. Because I know you mentioned about your experience when you talked about your friends, and you knew that they had an extra prophet, and the way that they used to pray, and that they used to not be able to play out because they were doing studies. Yeah. So when you started to kind of learn about Islam and discover new things about Islam, did that come as a surprise to you? Were you like, wow, I didn't realize this?
The pieces kind of came together. So I would say, as I started taking that journey and looking into it, because ultimately it led to me having my Shahada, which was at Risala Masjid, when it was based over on Aberdale Road. It's had different, it's like a little shop, it's had different names over the years. And so I took my Shahada there. So when I went there, I knew people there because I went to school with them. And on the corner shop and stuff. So I knew them already. And then as I started to go with them a little bit more, this is later on, then I got to see them in the mosque and things started coming together. And then you find out that your good friend from school is actually Hafiz of Quran. You're like, you didn't say anything about me. You didn't tell me he's Hafiz of Quran. So little things came together, but there was a bit of a journey before I got to that as well.
Tell me about the journey then. Did you have any struggles and difficulties along the way?
Yeah, basically. The crazy thing is, I always like to make situations right. I don't like being in a situation where people have got a bad view of myself. I always feel like I always try and search for doing the right thing, making the solution right. If it's up to me, everybody would be happy. We'd all live in peace and sing in harmony, and all be dancing and skipping in the road. That's me. So when something's not like that, then I like to look and try and make it correct, make it right. So as I looked at Islam and I found that Islam was right for me, and I embraced it. Obviously at that time we had things like the whole terrorist thing going on. So that was the only little niggly thing. And so I just checked with my mum. She goes, "Are you not going to be a terrorist?" I said, "Don't be daft. I'm not going to die." Right? So she's like, "Okay, that's all right then." So then that journey continued. I took my Shahada and moved on. Crazy thing is, I came back and I told my spouse at the time, "Hey, I'm Muslim, yeah." And she was like, "Yeah, so." Yeah, she's like, "Yeah, so." It had no effect. Wow. Because even though they came from the Muslim background, they were so far removed from the actual practice. Right. It didn't actually bear that much weight. And unfortunately, there's a lot of people that grow up in Muslim families, but their interpretation of it and how they feel about it is tainted because of what they see. Right. Yeah, what most people don't get to see within the Muslim home, they see and they're like, not really feeling it, or how they've been treated is not necessarily in line with Islam. So at the time, she was just not particularly bothered at that time. And sadly enough, what actually happened with that spouse, we did get married and had a child. And once the seed of Islam was planted, it's always burning. You're always wanting to know more. So I started to having to take this trip by myself. In the middle of it, actually went to Watford. So I was away from any peers, any support network, in a different city, and having to learn to pray. Me learning to pray was done by a computer program.
Were you studying or working in Watford?
Working.
Working. Okay.
Yeah. So we did like a business venture down there. So I went down there with one of my friends from university. After we graduated, we got together and said, yeah, he invited me down and said, right, we're going to do some IT business and stuff like that. So
and you're saying that you learned to pray by a computer program?
Yeah.
So you had nobody teaching you how to become... No. All right.
The computer program told me to do it. So the computer program says stand like this, okay, bend down like this. So the computer program taught me how to do it.
Wow.
And so bit by bit, so I started doing that bit, and then you start learning Al-Fatiha. And so the spouse that I had at the time kind of knew some of that, so I was able to help him bits and pieces. Sometimes the pronunciation was different. I said, "Why are you saying like that?" He says it like this, So sometimes the tongue is slightly different. But yeah, that's how I had to learn. But then I wanted to push towards learning about Quran and reading Quran, and I was like, "Yeah, let's read Quran." She's like, "Yeah, you read it. Tell me what it says. Let's wake up and let's pray Fajr." Yeah, you pray Fajr. I'm sleeping. So it was like just a consistent battle that I'm having to try and still grab hold of the deen in some form or fashion, even though, the spouse wasn't actually bothered. Found the local mosque, prayed Jummah, every Friday, and that's about it. That was as far as my Islam went at that time.
Wow.
Praying Fajr on Friday, everything else, I could have been like anybody else. I could have been like a non-believer in that respect. The bad habits were still there from Jahiliyyah, from the world. So, smoking, drinking, and clubbing and going out and all those kinds of things that everybody else does, that was still there. Because, I had a spouse that's where they were. Yeah. And it was only after going down that particular route, and even though we got married and, emotionally in love and all that kind of stuff, but it can only take you so far.
Yeah.
And so as we developed the relationship, I felt it went in different directions, ultimately. You can always point the finger to say why things broke down, but ultimately it went in different directions. And I felt that because we didn't have this certain thing to hold on to, a faith to bring us back together again, it just went to totally different ways. So I came back up to Sheffield. That relationship ended. And for me, that was a point where I had to do a check. Reality check. Where are you? How did you get to this point? You went there with all good intentions. You're going to get married, you're going to do this and and it doesn't work out. So then what do? You look yourself in the mirror and say, "Oh, look, what are you doing, guy? You messed up, or you made a mistake." So that's when I got back in touch again with Islam. So that's when I started really learning and then really concentrating on my prayers, trying to establish my 5 times prayer. Imam Rami came on the scene. Rami from Muhammad from Chicago. And alhamdulillah, he was sent from Allah for me, because that really helped me to really learn about Islam as well, in terms of practice, in terms of application, in terms of roots as well. So there was also in his a heritage link, an identity link as well with Islam. He's the first person that told me about the slave trade, and many of those were Muslims. So he helped me to sort of link back. Being a Muslim is nothing new for somebody of African Caribbean descent. It's nothing new. We were Muslims a long time ago. So in a sense, we're just rediscovering it. So so when I started rediscovering and practicing it, then that's when it really became stronger for me.
What was the reaction then by your close friends? And I know you mentioned your mum. But what about other family members? What did they think?
So funny enough with my mum, because at first I used the name Abu Malik. Because my son's first name was Malik, so it's Abu Malik by definition. His father, and then later on I says I want to adopt a Muslim name. And I think this was part of the time when I was in the journey through finding a new spouse, a spouse that I could take the journey with. So the best name says 99 names of Allah. Those are the best names that you can have. Okay, fine, I want one of the 99 names, but I don't want to put my mum's nose out of joint either. So I says, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell my mum what I'm looking for, so she can help me choose one.
Okay, that's good.
So I went with the 99 names and went through all of them. She goes, anything begin with M. So I went through all the M ones and eventually got to Muhammad. She goes, I like Muhammad, because that's my name then.
Alhamdulillah.
So then became Abdul Muhammad, and that's it. It stuck ever since. So that way she always feels like she's a part of it. Not I've become Muslim and now I've just gone off in some different direction.
That's beautiful.
So
that's nice.
So with us, that was fine. With the rest of my friends, like I said, a lot of them were from school. So when there's someone's like, oh, mashallah, are you Muslim now? I said, yeah. So yeah, a lot of Pakistani friends, welcomed me and went to the mosques and prayed with them and stuff. So family and friends are pretty much all right. You've always got those sets of friends that became more distant.
Right.
Because as I was making this journey and without anybody really cracking the whip, because you go through a journey of reformation, certain things just die down a little bit.
Yeah.
And in fact, funny thing is when I actually came back to Sheffield, and this was towards the end of our relationship when things weren't getting really, things were terrible. I actually thought, you know what, and this is not praying 5 times. This is just Jummah. Yeah, I wasn't doing 5 times. I wasn't strong enough. I didn't have enough in me. I mean, just having that. When I came back to Sheffield, I thought, you know what, I'm gonna get back with my mates. Yeah, right. I'm gonna go out. I'm gonna have a good time like this, right? Because this woman's doing my head in. Yeah, and I just need to just go out and be with the boys. And we did. I went out. Went down to Hull, and it's funny that the things that you don't sometimes realize how your perception changes through what you've learned. So I went into the club and I'm thinking, I like the club, because I go out and I just dance and I just have a good time and stuff like that. I went in there and my eyes, it's just like the veil had been lifted. All I looked, I just saw haram. I just saw alcoholic drinks everywhere. I saw, flirting going on, and all of a sudden, I didn't even know what music was playing. I just felt so uncomfortable in the place.
Wow.
I felt physically uncomfortable. I was like, this is not for me anymore. I can't not see it. So when you see those things, I just did not feel, I always felt comfortable wherever I go. I did not feel comfortable in that place. That was the last time I went to any of those kind of nightclub places. I said, that chapter's closed. Allah's closed that chapter.
Wow.
And so that was a big eye opener for me, really. Yeah. It was a massive eye opener. And so that also helped me to then just continue that journey. And I said, with certain friends as well, come back to what you were saying, with certain friends, they were doing certain things that I'm trying to move away from. Yeah, I'm a Jamaican. I got Jamaican friends. Yeah, we kind of got a reputation for certain things. Okay, and behaving a certain kind of way. That's not necessarily in line with Islam. So I'm trying to change that and remove myself from that. But they know who I am, so it wasn't a problem. I'm still friends with all of them. It's just the social circles change.
Was food ever a problem for you?
No, because I grew up in church. So in church we always ate from the Pakistanis actually anyway.
Right.
So most of the time we ate halal meat anyway.
Okay.
So that wasn't a big thing. In our church we don't eat pig meat.
Oh, that's good. Right. Okay.
So food not a big thing really. Yeah.
I'm still amazed that your mum actually chose your name. That is amazing.
MashaAllah, Allah gave me some hikmah there.
MashaAllah. Is there anything else then that helped? And I know you talked about obviously going to the club and that eye-opener. But was there anything else that happened that you thought, this really kind of helped me on my journey?
Like I said, spending time with Imam Rami, traveling with Imam Rami, going to various different lectures, went up and down the country, understanding his particular journey. He was very very knowledgeable, studied in Syria and Sudan. That helped to sort of get it more into sort of the practice and the application, and knowing there's a wider community of African descent who are also practicing Islam as well. And being with somebody who speaks fluent Arabic, he writes his lectures in Arabic. So when he's giving the khutbah and everything else, it's all in Arabic. I'm like, check this guy out. MashaAllah. Everything's in Arabic. I was like, okay. So being with him, that was a big eye opener, and he was the first one that actually started teaching me Arabic. So we used to go down there. A few of us went down there as brothers, and so we used to sit down there. We used to go all the way to Nelson, like every week, and sit there and go Alif Ba Ta and go through everything and start reading Quran and things like that. So that really helped a lot. Yeah, I think the other thing that probably helped a lot was when Sheikh Khalid Yassin, he also came to Sheffield as well, and that was also quite instrumental. To spend a lot of time in Purpose of Life Centre as we did that together, and that also helped to sort of cement us in the Deen. But also I would say and also getting married, because I think after the time that was split up from the previous wife, about a year and a half, and got married again, and just going through that journey of finding a wife. Yeah, that was a journey as well. That was a journey, because that's when websites just started happening, and these dating websites, and then you got the Muslim versions of it, and subhanAllah, you'll find that you try and do the right thing, and you find that people in there aren't actually honest. A lot of them aren't doing the right things. There's people there that just want to use it just to get dates. I'm sure there's no such thing as a date like what they're talking about in Islam. But yeah, we'll go to the cinema and this and that. I was like, that's not from the rules I've read. That's not the rules. You got to have a harem with you. You got to have somebody with you. Yeah. But that's the kind of things that I was seeing, and some of the sisters weren't quite correct either in the way that they wanted to be. So in the end, I ended up being quite blunt.
Yeah.
In what I says, look, I'm black. Yeah, that's saying, yeah, I'm black. I'm Jamaican. I've been married before. I put all the stuff down. I've got a son. I look after him as well, and so I put everything down there.
Yeah.
So then people know what they're going to get into. So yeah, basically just disqualify myself. If you don't like that description, then go the opposite direction. And funnily enough, my wife's auntie actually found my advert.
Oh, right.
Yeah. She actually found it and put us in contact. And at the time, my wife was in London. And initial talks over the phone were positive, went down. That was positive.
Where's your wife from?
Sri Lanka.
Oh, Sri Lanka.
Yeah.
Okay.
So she was actually with family in London. So, went down there, met everybody, seemed like a decent family. And that continued to grow.
Wow.
And out of everybody that I spoke to, how I rationalized it for myself, because it was a very different, for me really, the first way of really having actually an Islamic relationship, it was all centered around the deen. What you can marry your wife for. The beauty, the money, etc. Yeah. And for me, it was about the deen. That was the most, that was the biggest thing that I wanted to try and get right.
Yeah.
I've done it the other way, following the heart.
Yeah.
It didn't work out for me.
Yeah.
So I was like, park the heart can park that over there, because you got into trouble last time, park it over there, right, instead, right, I'm following Islam instead, right, so now I'm redirecting my heart. If I take that heart and put it there with Allah, put it over here with Allah, okay, right, that's where it's safe. Because Allah's always going to be there for me through thick and thin. So I'll put it over there instead, and I felt like any relationship that I have, her heart needs to be aligned,
of course,
to Allah as well. And then inshallah, you try your best and you make it work that way. And when I spoke to her, she was very direct, no nonsense, no side talking. How we like to have that little banter. So hey, how you doing? I mean, what you got on, what you wearing? How do you look today? There's no nonsense talking. So when I spoke to her, she just, if I tried to give her a little banter, a little patter, no, all right, say Islam, come by. I was like, wow, mashallah, she's good. I like this one. She was just about the deen and very, very straight. And that's where she was, and she was doing some huge practice. Her ibadah cycle was massive. And that's ultimately, what led me, to be with her, and then being with her, then just help things just to build from there on.
So how long have you been married for?
17 years.
MashaAllah. Allahu Akbar. I bet time's just flown, hasn't it?
When you count the years, time's flown. When you reflect, you see that you've been through quite a lot of different things. And marriage isn't without its challenges. This is half your deen is in your wife, half your deen is in your wife. It's true. You can be that soldier by yourself, and you got some tests, but it's not the same as when you're married. That's a different kind of test. When you're married with children.
What you say, because your wife might watch this. So.
She knows.
She remember there's a camera.
She knows.
Oh, that's fine.
She knows. But it is a test, and unfortunately, not everybody's able to weather those particular storms. And for myself, anytime you have those kind of things, we always go, well, how do you resolve this in Islam? A representative from both sides of the family, and then we'll kind of go try and go through that way. Although a lot of times she goes, no, we'll sort it out between ourselves. But you have to kind of be a little bit more open to that. And even though between Muslims, what happens in your close family, you keep it between your close family. But if there's any sort of danger or risk to it, then you have to bring those people who are close, nearest and dearest, that only want the best for you. And maybe you have to just try and talk it out a bit and consult a little bit. So throughout the 17 years, it's been massively, learned so much. And all the tests, like it says, with children, come the tests, and you have those couples without children. there's a test. So when you've got kids or not, the tests are always there, and so you're really starting to understand that to be a full-bodied Muslim, to have completely deemed that having that spouse element, that needs to be there. So for those single brothers who are still avoiding it, if you want to be a true Muslim, you need to be married.
So obviously, Islam is part of who you are now. It's a massive part of your identity.
Yeah.
But in relation to identity, because I know that this is something that I'm quite passionate about, identity. I know that you did an ancestry test.
Yes.
Tell me a bit about that then. So
what's been funny enough, what's been happening over the past few years, and if I take it a little bit further back, probably from the time when I was speaking to Imam Rami and started to understand where Islam is practiced. So what we don't get necessarily, even though it's quite multicultural in Sheffield, what we don't get is necessarily how Africans practice. The closest to it African practice is how Somalis, how they practice. So you get to see that. You get to see how Pakistanis do it, how Yemenis do it. And so you see those different...
In terms of like culture?
Yeah, in terms of culture and Islam. But they say Islam is a way of life.
Yeah, of course.
Not just a prescriptive thing that you do. It's a way of life. So it's intertwined into your life. So what I was interested in is I wanted to know from an African perspective, how do they practice it?
Yeah.
Because that's what I wanted to see. And so one of the things that I always wanted to do is have that pilgrimage through those African countries that got Muslims that are practicing to see how they do it. Because I think one of the things, and just reflecting back on what you said before, and the challenges, one of the challenges when you become Muslim, you tell everybody, be careful of this, be careful of that, don't listen to that person, don't listen to that person, don't go to that group's deviant, that group's this one, that, and you're like, what? I thought you Muslims had it all together. No, there's that deviant group, that one, HT group, all sorts of different things, so you get combat with all these different things. And at the end of when you're searching for the right path, and you're searching for something that fits in with your own self as well, so your own identity, your own culture. So that was always something that I was aspiring to see in the future as I could. And in fact, I went to the US once. Imam Rami invited me over there.
Okay.
And they have something called Riyadh every year. And so I went over there, and that was an eye opener, because it's literally African American event.
Wow.
All Muslims, some top speakers. That's when I got to see Amir Suleiman. That's when I first got to meet him. And it was just a lot of. It was just totally eye opening just to see Islam being practiced by just people that look like yourself, because ultimately people always like things that look like themselves. To feel like connection with, and so to see that was a big thing. So in terms of identity, that was a huge positive, and so there's always a yearning to see more of that, and also I want to see it even a step back now with the African countries to see where they're coming from. And then he says, moving on to the ancestry test, what's also been happening is over the past few years, I'm into business. Okay. So I've got an IT company that's been running about 11 years now. I've been in various different network marketing businesses as well. And since that time, I've also moved into commodities and international business. And so when we went into international business, I found myself speaking with more and more Africans.
Wow.
And so we're speaking with more and more Africans. That's a funny thing as well. At school, we always have this African-Jamaican divide. Yeah, used to be this African-Jamaican divide all the time. Africans don't respect Jamaicans and vice versa. And we kind of, unfortunately, got rid of that. That's no longer there now. So now we're able to come together and really start to understand. And so now my love for Africa is actually increased.
But why do you think that divide was there?
Well, there's a lot of colonialism, and obviously because we were removed from Africa to another place, okay, and then grew, and then funny enough, had to create our own culture and identity.
Yeah.
From the ground upwards. There was we tried to practice it, it was beaten out of us, and then we had to create a whole new one whilst being enslaved, and then after that, further develop that of our own.
But I know there's some people like in Jamaica, and if you said that, if you call them African, even though they've got African heritage, they'd probably fight you. They're like, don't you dare call me African.
Yeah.
But I can understand the reason why they might be like this is because when you look at Africa and how Africa's portrayed, it's always been portrayed as though people just live in mud huts and they've never contributed anything to world history. And we know that's not correct.
Correct.
Obviously.
Yes.
So
again, you're back to media. Media and misrepresentation. that's the biggest thing. And unfortunately, there's the ones who control the media and the books and the curriculum and the things that we see, the things that we read. Obviously, there's an agenda there. And unfortunately, if you're not open your eyes, you're going to fall into it. Fortunately, now there's so much more information that's available. People are starting to wake up.
Yeah, that's true.
A lot more people are starting to talk more because of all globalization, as they call it, and communication. You can be speaking easily with somebody in Africa and see what's going on. Yeah, and against the UK, Australia, wherever it is in the world. So people don't have to take what the book says or what the person says. Oh, show me. Pick up the phone. Oh, this is what's happening. I can show you right now what's happening. It's not filtered. This is exactly what's happening. I'm telling you the truth because I've got nothing to gain. I'm not a media company of any sort. I'm not a news reporter. I'm just telling you what's going on. So because of that, and more people talking, all these barriers are starting to come down and people are starting to realise that they need to be coming together. And this is where you got the diaspora now, and Africa is actually coming back together and actually talking a lot more than they were talking before.
So just to finish off, we've come to the end. What's next for Abdul?
Well, the DNA heritage. Sorry, I didn't finish with DNA heritage. So the DNA heritage side of things, that came back being like 65% Nigerian, okay, and about 90% West African.
Yeah.
So that was interesting to see something in black and white that showed that it's not. We know it's not 100% accurate.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's going to give you a fairly good indication. And so to see that link back. It's like an extra affirmation. Yeah, and then you can look into it further and look into the tribal side of things and where you are. But for me, it just cemented the journey that I also need to continue making in terms of my ancestry and the African side of things as well. Yeah. So what was the last thing you asked me again, sir?
That was it. What's next for Abdul?
What's next?
Yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah. What's next is to continue to build more bridges. I'm talking to a lot of people, especially from the African diaspora, who their eyes are opening up. And we've got a lot of our own people who, especially in Nigeria, you got half of them Muslim, half of them Christian. It's not a big thing. So having a religious persuasion is not a barrier. Once upon a time I'd be like, I'm Muslim, right? Or you're trying not to show that side of it. But now it's a lot more open. People are more accepting of it, and in fact, with the globalization as well, most people, if you throw down your prayer mat and start praying, they know what you're doing. Yeah. Whereas once upon a time, they'd be like, they're probably just freaked out by it, just don't know what's going on, think you lost your marbles or something. Yeah. So a lot more people are giving of it, and you can go more places and pray. And so now, basically, in terms of the future, for me, a lot of roads lead towards Africa and unifying people from the African, Caribbean, African American heritage, and helping people really to help discover themselves in their own journey. Yeah. And share my love for Islam, which will always be married with my identity.
Thank you very much. Thank you for coming on CubeCast.
Thank you.
That's a wrap.